A warm welcome to everyone. So wonderful to see all of you gathered here. See you taking care of your lives in this way of practicing Dhamma together with the Sangha. Beautiful. How's the sound? Is the sound okay? Yes? Okay, great. All right, so this is the Sunday Sounds of Dhamma program. And as usual, that means we'll have about a half an hour of guided meditation, about a half an hour of Dhamma talk, and plenty of time for questions, reflections, comments, and dedication of merit at the end. And before we begin any of that, I just want to make a few announcements. So the November retreat on Buddhist art and what it teaches us about feelings, emotions that we have on the path is still open. There are just a few more seats left if anybody would like to attend that at Berry Center for Buddhist Studies in Massachusetts. And there's also room in the online class, the December online class on Suzuki Roshi's teachings on non-self. So I'm going to give a 4-week class called Reflections of the Self, online only. And you can sign up for that on their website, sfzc.org. And what else is happening? The January retreat is on the 4 factors leading to stream entry. It's called a retreat on how to establish momentum in your practice. That's also happening up in Massachusetts. And yeah, various and sundry other things. So hope y'all will keep an eye on the website and have a look at news as it unfolds. All right. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and settle in for the meditation. Welcome. And you can begin by establishing an upright and balanced meditation posture. So I always like to begin with a little bit of movement, just rocking the body, moving the head, releasing any tension that you can let go of right now. And moving the attention down to the lower abdomen and releasing the belly. And moving the attention up the torso. Softening the muscles around the chest. And sensing the breath, breathing the body to its own rhythms. And softening around the eyes. And softening the mouth. And now, just becoming aware of endings. Noticing the end of a breath, the end of a sound, the end of a thought. Staying curious about endings, about cessation. No need to strain at all. Endings are happening all the time. So just receiving those endings deeply. Cessation. And in order to be aware of cessation, it helps to be aware of arising, the start of a breath or a thought or a sound. staying curious about your experience and aware of beginnings and endings. Noticing whether there's anything in experience that isn't arising or ceasing. All right, so that is our meditation for today. And I'm going to go ahead and share a Dhamma talk with you. And I'm going to begin, as ever, with the homage to the Triple Gem. So this is in the ancient language of Pali, and If that's unfamiliar, it's really okay just to let it wash over you. If you would like to chant along, you're also welcome to chant along. For folks in the room, it's on screen, or there's also some little chant sheets there at the front of the shrine. And folks online, please do keep your mics muted, all except for Claudia G, who is doing interpretation there. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. For a long time, perhaps since the beginning of human time, people have been asking big questions. Big questions like, is the world infinite? Or is the world finite? Or what happens after we die? Or what happens after an awakened being dies? Or is there a soul? Is the soul the same as the body? Is it a different thing? And yet, just having a concept, a philosophy, a reason to believe one thing or another doesn't quite do it for us. Doesn't really resolve. Doesn't usually come to the end of all doubt or questioning. But we keep trying, science and psychology and philosophy. There are lots of different ways that we keep trying. But the Dhamma suggests a completely different approach. And it's not that the Dhamma doesn't say something about those questions. It surely does. But what it says doesn't fit quite neatly into any of those boxes. So the Dhamma is said to be the path of the middle way. And the middle way is described in early Buddhism in the Pali text known as the Nikayas. The middle way is defined in 3 different ways, actually. Maybe some of you have never heard this. So one way that the middle way is described is the path that is balanced between sensual pleasures, indulgence in sensual pleasures, and mortifying the body and the mind. The Buddha said neither one of those two is a helpful way to live your life, a helpful kind of practice. But a middle way, which doesn't fall into either of those two extremes, is the way that will lead to direct knowledge and to peace and nibbana. That's one way that the middle way is defined. Another way that the middle way is defined is the middle way between pain and between pleasure, or between, you could say, different degrees of effort. So the middle way is sometimes the metaphor that's used is like a lute, that our practice, a lute is a very old style stringed instrument, like maybe like a ukulele kind of thing. You can say that I'm not a musician. No offense to anybody who is. But if the strings are too tight, then they pop, then they break, and you can't actually play the instrument. And if the strings are too loose, then the instrument doesn't make a proper sound. So the Buddha said somewhere, some better form of balance than that was necessary for our practice. That's the second way that the middle way is defined. But the third way is the one that relates to these other bigger questions that I was just talking about. And this is the middle way between existence and non-existence. For a person who clearly sees the arising of phenomena, they cannot, or should not, or probably more like would not, fully assert the non-existence of things. You can see the arising of phenomena. You can observe this in your body, in your mind, what we see in the world. All the time. And for one who sees cessation, for one who sees the ending of phenomena, then they would not assert the existence, you could say, the permanent, stable, independent, non-conditional existence of things. So the proposition is the middle way, a way which understands that all of the phenomena that we see in body and mind, in the world, in the whole universe, is impermanent. It is conditional. It is momentary. And we sat in meditation, and you can see exactly that happening. Whether it's a breath or a thought, the sensation of the seat beneath you. If you steady the mind and you become very quiet and you observe phenomena with precision, you see that even consciousness is moment by moment arising, present, ceasing. So neither existence nor non-existence is the nature of what we see. And that means that it's all happening because of the conditions, because there are other phenomena that are present. So sometimes I talk about the 3-layer cake. The 3-layer cake is the different types of perceptions that you might have when you are in meditation or even as you're moving about your life. So one layer is the content. It's the stuff, it's the storyline, the feelings, the emotions, the colors, and so on. Yeah. It's necessary to understand that, to see the patterns of the mind, the way that we react to things or our beliefs, and so on. But that is only one part of the cake. I suppose it could be a pie. Then there's the process view, right? The process view is one thing happens and then another thing happens. Right? I feel a pain in my knee and I think, oh, I need to stand up. That need, statement of need, that's a reaction to the perception of the phenomena of pain in the knee. It comes next. But then there is this specific conditionality. This is the third way, the specific conditionality. And specific conditionality means that the thing is as it is because the conditions are present for it to be as it is. So Chaya gave me this lovely gift when she was here last week, and it's a little frame for a little photo frame. And it says, when a child is born, so is a grandma. Because my first grandson was born 2 weeks ago. And that is specific conditionality. There's no grandma before child. But as soon as child is present, then grandma is present. You understand? Or for myself, one way that this became very clear was when I was on retreat years ago, and I was sitting on the deck of this yurt that we used at the monastery for our solitary retreats in the forest. And I was sitting there on the deck, and it was a very overcast day. So I was just looking out at the trees, some kind of a big tree. That's as much as I can identify. That's just off the deck. And then there was an opening in the clouds. The clouds parted a little bit, and suddenly there was some bright sunshine. And that when there was bright sunshine, then there was this big shadow that was cast by the tree. Just for a few moments. And then the clouds came back together again, and the sun was obscured somewhat. And then the shadow of the tree goes away again. Right? Specific conditionality. When there is bright sunlight, then there is shadow. So that is why the Buddha says, don't assert a permanent, independent existence about things, because then you will have a view, an understanding, a concept that obstructs your ability to see in your world the way that conditionality is actually demonstrated, is actually showing up in shadows and babies and grandmas and oak trees. But also know that there is some phenomena that is happening. There is some phenomena that can be directly known. It's not all nothing. Sometimes you hear both, either one of these two things asserted, even in Buddhist realms. But that's not the early teaching. The early teaching says very clearly, non-existence and existence are part of phenomena. That is what's happening. So it's a very nuanced view, and it asks us to stay very present for the specifics of our lives and to understand that conditionality also means connection and opportunity. There would not be the possibility of a path if things existed permanently, solidly, without change. Or if they completely were non-observable, if there was no way to have a direct experience of some phenomena existing momentarily, there's no path. There's no way. So the Dhamma asks us again and again, what is this life? What is it that is unfolding, that is blossoming in front of you, moment by moment by moment? What is it that is blossoming as you in this moment and the next moment and the next? So this realm that we live in of great possibility is made possible by in an interesting way, it's made possible by the inconceivability. So this is why the Buddha says, don't worry if the world is finite or infinite. Just know your world. Knowing your world is enough to wake up. That's the good news, bad news, right? Because here you are living it, and as far as I can tell, haven't quite become an arhat or a Buddha yet. And why is that? Typically because of views. Because of views. In fact, we were talking about this during Sutta contemplation on Thursday. The Buddha goes so far as to say that if you have the view that the world is finite, or the world is infinite, or the soul and the body are the same, or the soul and the body are different, or the Tathagata exists after death, or the Tathagata doesn't exist after death. If you hold any of those views, then the spiritual life cannot be lived, he says. The path cannot even be walked. Please have a seat, stay welcome. If we are certain about one side of that equation, only one side of any of that, And that's daunting, right? That's a big ask. To relinquish all views, because that is Nibbana. Nibbana is to relinquish not only all views, but all experience. If only for a moment. It's a big ask, but one that's possible. And one that becomes intuitively more and more desirable, more and more clear by the peace that is possible as we begin to approach that, as we begin to see how we are moved by this world. But we are meant to be moved by this world. That is the nature of life. So when Venerable Malunkyaputta, one of the monks who was a student of the Buddha's, approaches the Buddha and demands an answer to these questions, the Buddha says to him, "You misguided man," that's how it's translated, "you misguided man, who are you and what are you abandoning?" Mm. Who are you and what are you abandoning? Pointing at the profound release that is the basis of insight. Because our path is not one of polishing up your shinier best self. It is not a path of self-improvement. So that may happen and that may be skillful. But the path is really a path of discovery. It is a path that leads directly here. Here to this breath, to this thought, to this moment of sound, coming to its natural end. Because where else could we live but in the heart of the truth? It is true for us, about us. You live in the heart of the truth. So when you find that those big questions come, then the real answer is, what can I possibly know? What can I truly know? Stay focused on that. What can I truly, truly know? And if you follow that thread, that is wisdom. for that reason, in the early suttas, we see that wisdom is described as knowing and seeing things as they truly are. What things? These things. This life. So I suppose that the this willingness to see the endings is one that can take some practice. Endings can be hard. Endings can be painful or scary or surprising, shocking. But I think that that helps bring balance to most of our tendency to feel that it will never change. You ever said that to yourself? Oh, this will never change, or that person will never change, or that mountain will be there forever. But no. See the arising, see the cessation, and let it show you that you live in the heart of truth. All right, dear friends, that was the reflection for today. And that means that now we have quite a bit of time for some of your comments and reflections or questions about the meditation or about the talk or what's going on in your practice.
I'll begin.
Okay. That's what I was going to. Okay.
Thank you for the talk. Yeah. It threw into stark relief for me these terms that are brought up a lot in spiritual community: duality and non-duality. And I've really, for a number of years, I've tried to stay away from that thought altogether because it's used a lot, the idea of non-duality as good versus duality as bad, you see. But when we talk about the Buddha's middle way view of existence, non-existence, then it sort of explodes the whole idea of duality and non-duality. So I think it might be an unsophisticated view of non-duality, I want to say, or something like that. But I just try to stay away from it altogether now. So do you have anything to say on duality and non-duality?
Well, what I can say is that oftentimes this comes up, various traditions have even been founded on this debate around duality, non-duality. And I think oftentimes what I see is that people will try to unify it into one thing and say, okay, that's non-duality. But no, that's just a new duality. Then it's the one thing and everything else, that's not the one thing, right? Or people thought like unity, like all is one. And yet in the Nikayas, the Buddha very clearly says that is a mistaken view. Why? Because what is happening is that there is a unity of diverse elements. And if you lose track of the diverse elements, then there's no chance, again, there's no opportunity for this beautiful unfolding of arising and ceasing to be happening. It's just one solid block. So unfortunately, what happens is that oftentimes people trying to get to non-duality, what they end up doing is only asserting one side, which is creating a duality, exactly. And that's why it's a huge mistake. So it really, and this is why I said it was a very nuanced view. It's incredibly sophisticated teaching what the Buddha has offered us. And it really asks us, it demands of us that we not be lazy and try to make it all fit one thing. Yeah. Okay. Other folks, have any reflections or questions or comments? Yes, Shodo, here. This little circle is the mic part of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so when you said, who are you and what are you abandoning?
Mm.
That like really got my attention. And then you said some things and I just missed what I heard you miserable man or something, but I don't have the whole story.
Mm.
And it was like there's something that felt really important to me. So I wonder
Mhm.
if you could talk about that some more.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, so just a little bit of background on the story, and then just what I reflected on was, so Malunkyaputta was one of the Buddha's students. Malunkyaputta, Putta means son. So he was the son of somebody named Malunkya. That was his mother's name. You see this very often in the suttas, that they are so-and-so's son. It's a polite way of referring to like family clans, actually, the kind of sort of clan system. Malunkyaputta approaches the Buddha and he asks these questions. Is the world finite? Is the world infinite? And so on. Is the soul and the body the same thing, or the soul? And he says, I will not lead the spiritual life under you unless you answer these questions for me. And the Buddha says, when did I ever promise you that? For one, that's the first thing that the Buddha says, is when did I ever promise you that? And then he says this, he says, you misguided man, who are you and what are you abandoning? And to me, what I hear in that question is the Buddha pointing at the idea that Malunkyaputta is asking the Buddha to assert a series of views that he can either agree or disagree with. And the Buddha is saying, no, the path is abandon your search for views. Just be with your direct experience. Out breath, yes.
Yes.
This is Reverend Shodo. Did I tell you already? You showed us Reverend Shodo Spring, who is my friend who we met in Tassajara years ago. She's here to talk about her book in DC in a couple of days. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. So, sure, of course, yes.
So abandoning views in part of my practice has been sort of admitting, confessing to views in this particular time in the world. And I wonder if you could say something helpful about that.
Yes. Well, so maybe we should keep it in case you want to keep going. So there's definitely skillful views and unskillful views, right? Right view is the start of the Noble Eightfold Path. So it's not that the Buddha didn't say there is such a thing as beneficial views or unbeneficial views, but alongside that, or you could say, in addition to that, the relinquishment that is necessary to experience Nibbana, or to see, you could say, the absolute cessation of all things and the absolute arising of them, is kind of obstructed by views. It's obstructed by any kind of overlay, a conceptual overlay onto experience itself, right? But yes, we do have to have skillful view to even be on the path, right? Like the precepts, we could say, is a good example of views that we hold. You do not kill, right? This is, I vow not to kill because I have the view that killing is harmful. But yeah, so it's the difference, I think, between the kind of enactment in the subjective realm, how are we doing that, versus kind of stepping out completely outside of all of that, or allowing all of that to fall away as it does, and then experience that side where there's no such thing as view. Yeah. It's a big ask. I know, it's a big ask. It's a big ask.
It's a great phrase, though.
Yes, please. The question from the Buddha.
Yeah, who are you? Because it really hit
Yeah.
me too. Who are you, and what was the...
And what are you abandoning?
Who are you and what are you abandoning? So it gives the question. It doesn't say you are not anything. You are something. So there's such nuance even to the question. That's what hit me, is like, oh, who are you? So you are something in a sense, but you aren't something in a sense. So it's this double play happening, which is, yeah, work with that for a while. Go on that for a while.
Indeed. Yes. In fact, now Satchidara's reflection reminds me of the story of Bodhidharma. So Bodhidharma was an Indian monk who was said to be the first Chinese ancestor of Zen, because he went from India to China to bring the teachings, Mahayana teachings, to China. And he has an encounter, or so the legend goes, he has an encounter with the emperor of China, during which the emperor asks him, because he says something impertinent. I forget what he said. He said something that could be construed as impertinent to the emperor, and the emperor says, "Who are you?" And the Bodhidharma answers, "Don't know." Yeah. Not I don't know, just don't know.
Yeah, who are you and who are you trying to abandon? What does that do for our even sense of anatta? It brings us to a deeper level of even understanding the selflessness.
Yes, true.
The self and the selfless.
Yes, it brings us, Satchidara saying, it brings us to a deeper level of understanding the selflessness of which is why Nibbana is the relinquishment of all things, or as I like to say, that the true form of things is formlessness. Right? We see form and we get fixated on that, and we fail to see the formlessness of the form. Yeah. But I don't want to get into too much Zen speak, because you all have to just figure this out for yourselves. Just observe it. Right? Just observe it. And the meditation on cessation, for me, is always a lot of interesting phenomena happening, right? Because that sort of cutting off, oh yeah, oh, and this too, and this too, and this too, right? Ending. Deborah?
For those of us not deep into Zen, which is me and several others in the room who admire and at least for me, so something I'd like to learn more about. But in any case, I'm going to raise us out of the depths into a shallow area, which is an observation. I have a nature journal, and it covers 5 years of observations. And because there's so many gaps in it, I'm into about the 7th or 8th year. And in it, I note just very briefly what's happening that day when I get around to it. And a couple of days ago, I saw the first junco. And junco is a small sparrow-sized bird that comes from the north and lives down here in the winter and then goes away. And it was one of those examples of change and impermanence. And to me, it's a lot of mudita. It's like, you're back with your little group here in your little ways. And so I just wanted to share that.
Yes, yes, exactly. It is lovely, and it can be just like that for us, right? Just like the shadow of the oak tree, like, okay,
Might be deeper than it.
here. Yes,
There.
yes, exactly, exactly. Because one day that and often I would say maybe even more than one day, because often what happens is we have many insights that lead onward, right? So one moment of that seeing received in a certain way can be aha, and a certain amount of delusion falls off, chunks of the iceberg. Chunks of the iceberg are falling off. Just from these very mundane, simple, small moments. Yeah, it's beautiful. I think there's something in the chat here that I want to have a look at and see if there's a question or. Anita says, I'm reminded of the Buddha criticizing teachers who wouldn't commit to a view, the eel wrigglers. Right. There's that too, right? That people who try not to say anything. That's also not useful, right? Trying not to say anything, also not useful. If you're somebody's spiritual guide, let's put it that way. The eel wrigglers. Thanks for that, Anita. Yeah. Yes, Hamza.
With the wisdom of knowing and seeing things as they are, it reminded me of the story of Ananda, where after the Buddha's passing, where he still hadn't reached total arahantship. I'm sure you could tell the story much more beautifully, but I guess he was in that meeting with the 499 arahants, and they said, "Come on, Ananda, you got to get with it. You're the only one left." And I guess it was just in changing his position from maybe lying down to getting up or something or other. And in that moment, something, how the story goes, where he must have been so focused on knowing and seeing that it kicked him into arahantship,
Yes.
which is an amazing story.
Yes. Yes. And there are so many like that, Hamsa, right? There are so many stories like that. Like the story of Patachara, she was just putting out the wick of her lamp, right? She just goes psh, and puts out the lamp, like she's done 1,000 other times. But that one time, it all went out. Yeah. Or like the story of the monk who had he left the monastery in disgust after I think his name is Gensha. I'm not sure that I have the name right, so don't quote me on that. But he leaves the monastery in disgust, like, I'm never going to get it. I've been practicing here for 20 something years. And he goes to his little hut in the forest. And then one day he's sweeping the front porch of his little hut in the forest, and the pebble hits the bamboo. Knock. And that was it. That was it for him. That was the moment. Or the person who awoke at the smell of plum blossoms. Right? so many stories about this. My master Harada Roshi used to love to tell the story about somebody who had an awakening on the train, on the subway train. Something about the sound of the train that did it for him. So every moment a possibility. Yes, Brad.
I'm just thinking of Ajahn Chah saying, trying to find peace is like searching the world for a turtle with a mustache. You can search the world forever and you will never find a turtle with a mustache. But if you create the causes and conditions for peace, peace will come and find you. And that's one thing that I love about the practice of observing endings, is that, you know, just to, however brief it is, just to tune into the silence and stillness when there's nothing happening. And also to see how much is actually happening in that nothing happening. You know, how much we're still creating stories of, I am experiencing this and all the rest of it. And also thinking of how when I stop looking for silence and stillness, it was there. And then just trying to cultivate the skill of tuning into it, resting back into it, instead of trying to grab it somewhere, trying to create what's already there. So
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
so
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. Again, that practice of discovery, you know. I remember walking across the living room at one point and stopping and going, oh, neutral Vedana, completely neutral Vedana. Like completely. I was stopped by it, like, whoa, look at that. So, yes. It's right here. Yes, Deborah?
What were they going around the world looking for? I heard turtle mud stench.
Turtle with a mustache. Turtle with a mustache. Ajahn Chah. So Ajahn Chah was a Thai monk, very revered teacher, who came up with the greatest metaphors. He was so good at coming up with these funny, very funny metaphors, but also beautiful, you know, kind of stunning metaphors, you know.
Because you could find a turtle with a mud stench.
She thought it was a turtle with a mud stench. She was saying that's possible, but not a mustache. We understand now. We understand now. All right, friends. Anything else? Any last reflections, comments, questions? Beautiful. All right. Well, so Dana and Joso, I think this is your moment.
Okay.
Oh, Joso may be gone. That's okay. Oh, she's there.
The practice of giving and receiving has been a part of Buddhism since its inception. Giving to the Dassanaya Buddhist Community supports our guiding teacher, Dhammadīpā, the physical location at the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in support of the awakening of all beings. It's particularly joyous right now during Dassanaya's fall fundraiser. Our support pages are on the website under the support tab. Donate, volunteer, or offer materials. Thank you for your presence here today.
Thank you, dear Dana and Joso. And yes, much gratitude to everyone for your presence, which makes this a sangha, for all of the supports, which make it possible for us to be here, quite literally. You are the ones who make it possible. And may the merits of our practice be a beneficial condition for our freedom from suffering and all delusion. And may that too be a cause and a condition for the freedom of all beings, known and unknown, seen and unseen, beings in every realm, with all sorts of views. May all beings be liberated by the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and each one's efforts. May all beings be free. And just one brief announcement about Thanksgiving, which I forgot to make at the beginning. So next week we will have the regular program as usual. Next week, yes. And then the following week is the retreat up in Massachusetts. So keep an eye on the website. I may have a very special speaker for you, or we may be on pause that week. And I'll be back on the Thanksgiving weekend. There will be a talk on Sunday, the fourth Sunday of the month, Thanksgiving weekend. Okay? Beautiful. See you all soon. Be well.